The Chaldean Syrian Church is an Indian Christian church that is currently an archbishopric of the Assyrian Church of the East. Its members are part of the St. Thomas Christian community, who trace their origins to the evangelical activities of Thomas the Apostle in the 1st century. They are almost exclusively based in the state of Kerala, with the church's cathedral located in Thrissur. Despite carrying the Chaldean title in its name, the church is distinct from the Chaldean Catholic Church of the Middle East, an Eastern Catholic church in communion with the Pope. Historically, the St. Thomas Christians were united in liturgy and hierarchy, and were part of the Church of the East, centered in Persia. However, the actions of the Portuguese padroada in India led to a series of splits and schisms from 1653. That year the community was permanently split into a Malankara faction, which eventually aligned with the Syriac Orthodox Church of Antioch, and a Catholic faction, later known as the Syro-Malabar Catholic Church. The modern Chaldean Syrian Church emerged from a subsequent split in the Syro-Malabar hierarchy, and later aligned with the Assyrian Church of the East. Today, the Chaldean Syrian Church is one of 4 archbishoprics in the Assyrian Church of the East, and has about 15,000 members in and around Thrissur. Its cathedral is the Mart Mariam Cathedral, Thrissur's first Christian church. The members of the church are known as Nazaranis or Marthomasuyani Nazarani. Early history. The St. Thomas Christians trace their origin to Thomas the Apostle, who is said to have evangelized in India in the 1st century. By the 3rd century, India's Christian community was part of the Church of the East, led by the Patriarch of the East in Seleucia Ctesiphon, Persia. In the 7th century, India was designated its own ecclesiastical province. In 1499, the Portuguese arrived in India, and forcefully attempted to bring the St. Thomas Christian community fully into the Catholic Church under the supremacy of the Latin Church. The actions of the Portuguese padroada ultimately caused part of the community to follow the Archdeacon Thomas in swearing the Coon and Cross Oath in 1653. The faction that followed Thomas were known as the Malankara Church from 19th century, and eventually entered into communion with the Syriac Orthodox Church from around AD 1665. The Catholic faction eventually became known as the Syro-Malabar Catholic Church from around AD 1896. The Assyrian Church of the East in India is known as the Chaldean Syrian Church. Outside India, the name Chaldean Church refers to that branch of the Church of the East which has a separate existence from 1553 AD, when Pope consecrated a monk named John Sulaka as the Patriarch of Chaldeans of Babel. The head of Chaldean Church is Patriarch Cardinal Emmanuel Deli, who resides in Baghdad. The Catholicos Patriarch of the Assyrian Church of the East was His Holiness Karnania Mardinka IV, who resides in Chicago, where a lot of Assyrians from Iran and Iraq have migrated during the 20th century. Now, the 121st Patriarch of the Church of the East is Moran Margwarjas III, consecrated at St. John's Cathedral in Arbil on September 27, 2015. The Chaldean Syrian Church in India is based in Tricur. The history of this church in the early centuries is the same as the history of the other Syrian churches in Kerala. From the arrival of St. Thomas till the Coon and Cross in 1653, the history of the Indian Church is common. Therefore, referring to this period, the account written by Fr. Dr. G. Varghese Panikar, published in the Journal of St. Thomas Christians, Volume 2, and Number 2, October-December 2000, is reproduced below. Malankara is another name for Kerala, the cradle of Christianity in India. St. Thomas the Apostle came to Kerala in AD 52 and preached the gospel with great success. Not much is known about the early history of these St. Thomas Christians, but 2 facts stand out clearly. Between the 3rd and the 9th centuries there were waves of immigrants from Mesopotamia to Kerala, and from the early centuries, this church with its liturgical center in Edessa, had also claimed its origin from St. Thomas. Thus the East Syrian or Chaldean liturgy was used in Kerala until the 17th century. The Syrian Church in Kerala was undivided until the advent of the Portuguese domination. The Portuguese set up their headquarters in Goa early in the 16th century and extended their domain to Kerala. The Archbishopric of Goa, backed by the Portuguese, claimed jurisdiction over the Syrian Christians of Malabar. The East Syrian liturgy and the Mesopotamian connection of the St. Thomas Christians laid them open to suspicion of Nestorianism, and Archbishop Menezes of Goa, who arrived in Kerala in December 1598, was determined to bring them into the Latin way of worship. Divisions among St. Thomas Christians. A protest took place in 1653 with the Coon and Cross Oath. Under the leadership of Archdeacon Thomas, the Thomas Christians publicly took an oath that they would not obey the Jesuit bishops. Rome sent Carmelites in two groups from the propagation of the faith to Malabar, headed by Fr. Sebastiani and Fr. Hyacinth. Fr. Sebastiani arrived first in 1655. He began to deal directly with the Archdeacon, Mathen. Fr. Sebastiani gained the support of many, especially with the support of Perambal Marchandi, Alexander Cadaville and the Vicar of Muttam. These were the three councillors of Mathen, who were reconciled with Gracia before the arrival of Sebastiana, according to Jesuit reports. Between 1661 and 1662, out of the 116 churches, the Carmelites reclaimed 84 churches, leaving Archdeacon Thomas I with 32 churches. The 84 churches and their congregations were the body from which the Cerro Malabar Church has descended. The other 32 churches and their congregations represented the nucleus from which the Syriac Orthodox, Marthoma, Syro-Malankara Catholics have originated. In 1665 Mar Gregorios, a bishop sent by the Syriac Orthodox Patriarch of Antioch, arrived in India. The dissident group under the leadership of the Archdeacon welcomed him, though most of the St. Thomas Christians gradually relented in their strong opposition to the Western control. The arrival of the Bishop Mar Gregory of the Syriac Orthodox Church in 1665 marked the beginning of a formal schism among the St. Thomas Christians. Those who accepted the West Syrian theological and liturgical tradition of the Syriac Orthodox Church of Antioch of Mar Gregory became known as the Jacobite. The Syrian Catholics remained in communion with Rome and later came to be known as the Syro-Malabar Church. Autonomy. The Chaldean Syrian Church's current metropolitan, Mathen, has argued that the church represents a direct continuation of the ancient Church of the East hierarchy in India. However, Matthias Mundaden sets the church's origin within the 19th century autonomy movement within the Syro-Malabar Catholic Church. For over 200 years the Syro-Malabar Catholics were under the authority of Propaganda Bishop of Payyappilly, Padruado Archbishop of Kodungallur and Archbishop of Goa. This arrangement led to resentment from some members, who wanted more autonomy for their local church, resulting in a formidable and sustaining autonomy movement. In the 19th century this movement's leaders made repeated pleas to both the Pope and the Patriarch of the Chaldean Catholic Church for their own bishop and liturgy. In response to these pleas, the Chaldean Patriarch Joseph Order sent a request to Pope Pius IX for the Syro-Malabar Catholics to be placed under his authority. Without waiting for a reply, he dispatched Elias Mellus, Bishop of Aqra, to India in 1874. Mellus had substantial success convincing Syro-Malabar Catholics in Thrissur district, and some churches in Kottayam district to recognize him as their bishop. Although the churches and God's people were called by the name Syro-Malabar Churches and Nation, the actual situation is that from Irinjalakuda to northwards and south of Bharatapura River and some churches in Meenachal Taluk, the Syro-Malabarians were half Catholic half Nestorian with East Syrian liturgy up to AD 1896-1911. By 1877, 24,000 followers had joined his group, based in Our Lady of Dolors Church in the parish of Cerro. In response, the Pope dispatched Latin Catholic leaders to reign in Melos, who was sent back to Mesopotamia in 1882. By then, however, he had established the infrastructure for an independent church. Majority of Melusa followers returned to the Cerro Malabar Catholic Church. Ancient Payyappilly Church returned to the Cerro Malabar Church after the death of Mar Mikhail Augustinos in 1911, who was the head of independent Chaldeans. About 8,000, however, maintained their demand for autonomy, and took their requests for an independent bishop to non-Catholic churches. In 1904 they made one such request to the Archbishop of Canterbury to get one East Syrian bishop, but were declined. They subsequently made an equivalent request to Shimon 21 Benjamin, Patriarch of the Assyrian Church of the East in Ocanis, who consented, dispatching Bishop Abba Melech to serve as their metropolitan bishop. Mar Abimelech, though Matthias soon revived East Syrian practices and introduced Nestorian dogma to the Cerro Church, which was abandoned in Circle Diamper Synod 1599 and afterwards. These reforms caused even more followers to break away and rejoin the Cerro Malabar Church, but the Assyrian-oriented Cerro Church survived. In 1964, during the reign of Assyrian Patriarch Shimon 23 Esser, a dispute over hereditary succession and church calendars caused a metropolitan of the Church of the East in India to break away from the Assyrian Church of the East, re-establishing full independence as the ancient Church of the East. However, in 1995, Esser's successor, Mardinka IV, was able to heal the rift, and part of the ancient Church of the East returned to his jurisdiction as the Chaldean Syrian Church. The Chaldean Syrian Church in India now constitutes one of the 4 archbishoprics of the Assyrian Church of the East. Its followers number around 15,000. The present metropolitan, Mathen, is headquartered in Thrissur city and is a noted author. His seat is the Marthmariam Valley, Payyappilly, 10 degrees 31 minutes 6 seconds north, 76 degrees 13 minutes 2 seconds east, 10.51833 degrees north, 76.21722 degrees east, 10.51833, 76.21722. The Chaldean Syrian Higher Secondary School is also affiliated with the Church St. Thomas Christian denominations. Bibliography. Mar Apramukan, the Chaldean Syrian Church in India. Mar Apramukan, Church of the East.